The mate and align positioning command is used to position items without constraining them. If you'd like to constrain items, you should use the positioning constraints command above. The mate and align positioning command is similar to the triball in that when you position something with the triball, generally it won't be locked down with a constraint, but you can very quickly and efficiently move and position it. It's worth noting that in most cases, I would recommend using the triball for moving and positioning operations. However, in some unique cases, the mate and align positioning tool can still be useful. The first thing we need to do is to select onto an item that we're going to use the mate and align positioning tool with. So I'll select onto this part here, and then I'll click on the mate and align positioning command. Now you can see when I hover over my part, I'm getting an arrow going in different directions. This arrow with a dot at the end represents the mate and align operation. If I press the space bar, it will toggle through my options. The next option is to just align and not mate. The next option is to just do a point to point. And then the next option is for attachment points, which I'll go into later in the video. Let's start with the mate and align option. So for example, let's say I'd like to mate and align this face to this face here. Now you can see at the moment it's going to be upside down, so I'm going to press the tab key, which will flip that arrow the other way around, just like that. Now I'm going to click to place this, and as you can see, that has now mated and aligned those two faces. I could do the same here. For example, I might just do an align with this face and this face, like that. But you can see here when I'm positioning, it's generally often easier to use a point-to-point position, as you might with the triball. So if I switch over this to point, like this, it can often be easier to go from, for example, this point to get it into its exact position. There are some examples, like this one over here, where the mate and align positioning command can actually be one step less than using the triball. Although generally I would still recommend using the triball because in most cases I expect it will be a lot faster and easier. Here I'll select onto this part and I'll click on the mate and align positioning command. Now I'm going to click on this bottom point here. And then I'm going to click from that point to this bottom point here. And you can see in just one move there, it's now positioned and correctly oriented. Whereas with the triball, you would generally first move it or first align it and then do the next step. So for example, we would align it and then position it, or position it, then align it in 2 steps. Another example here is if we could move this part over to here. So for example, if I was to use the triball to perform a similar operation, I would go in and move this to here, and then I would rotate this so that it was aligned here. And in this case, we probably actually flip that 180 like so. Now let's have a look at an example of using the mate and align positioning tool with attachment points, because it can come in useful there as well. Here we have a part with attachment points. Now with the mate and align positioning command, we can actually select onto those attachment points. So for example here, I'm going to click on the command. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to press the space bar until I get the circle with the arrow, which is now actually referencing the attachment point. So I'll click there, and now I can move around my model and choose where I'd like to place this and get a preview of what's going to happen. So you can see an attachment point here. I'm going to press the tab key so we flip that around. Oops, I pressed the wrong button on my keyboard there. Now I'll press the tab key. And as you can see, that's now flipped around the other way. So if we just click, it's actually going to place that into its position and reference the attachment point. So even though it looks like it's out of position at the moment, it's actually going to recognize there's an attachment point there and automatically connect it up to that attachment point. So it can sometimes be useful for moving things between attachment points as well, although we do also have the attachment point connector command for doing that. That's how to use the mate and align positioning command.